Hi friends, Angelica here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm taking part of Colorado Craft Company's April release Blog Hop. This release is full of Anita Jeram stamps and dies. Now Anita Jeram is an accomplished children's book author and illustrator, and I love that her whimsical characters have been transformed into stamps for us to color. Before we get into today's card, let's look at the 10 stamps that are in this release. Starting with Love Art, this stamp set has 2 images and 7 artsy sentiments. Moving on to Proud of You, this large image is such a fun, happy scene, and then you have 7 sentiments to match. You'll also find examples of how to color all of these characters on the back of each package. Amazing Mom has a large image and then 9 really playful sentiments that are meant to play off of each other. Really clever how they put that together. Then you have For Mom names, which is perfect to personalize cards for the women in your life. I love that there's Nana. We have a Nana in our family. For Mom stamp sets, 2 images and 7 sentiments, perfect for Mother's Day or a birthday card. And then this sweet stamp set is Dad's Cooking, perfect for the chef in your life. Again, sentiments, you can use some of these sentiments too inside the card. For Dad Names is perfect for the men in your life. And then you have For Dad stamp set, 2 adorable images, and then great sentiments for Father's Day or birthday cards. You could stamp them inside the card too. There's also 3 mini stamps that I have to share. Make a Wish, and then Snuggle Bunny, and the last is my favorite, The Artist. I cannot wait to create with this little guy. And all of these stamp sets do come with coordinating dies. Okay, let's just jump right into this. I stamped the image from Proud of You onto Arch's cold press watercolor paper with Tailored Expressions chocolate truffled hybrid ink. I'm going to be painting with Daniel Smith watercolors, and starting with the ground, I'm painting it with a Serpentine Genuine. I've made sure to load my paintbrush with enough water and paint, so I'm only going over the ground one time. I want a really crisp and jagged edge under the critters. Now for the bushy background, I picked green Appetite Genuine for the back bushes and grass. And I'm using my swatch that I've made for my metal palette to help me pick a darker green to add a little bit of contrast and break the green Appetite up just a little bit. I picked Perylene Green as my darker green. I just love how these 2 colors look together on my swatch sheet. I'm going to give the bush an uneven edge and add the grass before the paint dries. I want the grass and the bush to blend together. Now this brush that I'm using, it's a number 2 Escoda Rigger brush. And this brush, oh my goodness, is so much fun to use. I bought this brush by accident last year. I meant to buy a number 2 round brush. And when it finally came in the mail, I was a bit disappointed because the hairs on this brush is super long, and I had no idea what I was supposed to do with it. So I put it away, and I did not use it until I did this project. I did a few off-screen practice strokes before I was sure I wanted to use it. And I'm going to tell you, I was immediately ready to make wispy grass for the rest of the day. It's that much fun to use. I'm going to continue to add the bush and the grass behind the friends, keeping the bush at around waist high level. Most of the grass I'm painted with green Appetite. I did also add a few wisps of Serpentine to break up that color. If you look at the ceramic palette, you can see that the Serpentine is actually showing a burnt scarlet undertone. This paint granulates with specks of burnt scarlet, and the specks, they're so subtle and so gorgeous, especially when you get to see it in person. All right, so I'm still making some grass behind the animals, and seriously, how fun does this brush look to use? I really had to pull myself back on the grass because I just wanted to keep going. I probably did make it a little bit more fuller than what I needed to. I was going off of inspiration from the back of the package. The dancing friends are dancing in front of a wispy grass background. I added just a little bit more contrast to my background by bringing in that Perylene green. I just dropped in spots of color here and there. The paper was still just a little wet, and which made it perfect because the green didn't fade completely into the green Apatite Genuine, but it also didn't just stay in one place because the paper was completely dry. So when you can get that sweet spot of almost dry, that's a great time to just add a little bit of contrast and just let that paint move slightly on its own. I always have a paper towel handy to pick up paint that accidentally ends up on the animals, or if I just don't like it, like the shadows I just did under the animals. I tried 2 different colors, and then I ended up using Shadow Violet. Shadow Violet is one of my favorite colors to use for shadows. It's a beautiful gray mauve, and I ended up using it on the white mice also. To keep the mice looking white, I needed to add shadows to their right side. I picked my light source today to be coming from the left side, so most of the darker parts of the animals are going to be on the right side. I usually do the opposite, but I decided to just change things up a little bit today. Really quick, I want to talk about the brush that I'm using. I'm using a number 4 Princeton Velvetouch brush, and I have to say I love this brush. I've been pretty discouraged with the brushes that I have lately. I just couldn't get a sharp point like I used to. So I started to do a lot of researches on brushes, and I thought maybe I was treating them wrong. I wasn't taking care of them properly. So I watched tons of videos of what to do and what not to do. And I was doing everything properly. But I think what was going on is my brushes are either synthetic squirrel hair or natural and synthetic squirrel mix. And these brushes hold water and paint beautifully, but they're soft. So they don't really bounce or snap back. That's what I kept hearing, snap back to a point. Their tips didn't come to a point on their own. So I decided to try out a few synthetic sable brushes, which are supposed to snap back to a point really quickly. So I'm waiting for those brushes to be delivered, but I picked up this really small set of Velvetouch brushes. They were super cheap, maybe $20 for 4 brushes. And this number 4 is just a delight to use. It doesn't hold a lot of paint, which it doesn't bother me since I'm really not doing a big project. I just love how stiff the bristles are. Now, while I was talking about the brushes, I did get the cat painted, and I mixed burnt scarlet and quinacridone gold to make a nice orange for that cat. And I followed the back again of the package as inspiration to paint the cat. Now, moving on to the bunny, I mixed burnt sienna with nickel azo yellow to make a bright orangey brown. I love how bold and warm nickel azo yellow is, and I tend to use this color a lot. I did lean heavier on the burnt sienna side for more of a brown tone. You see that I rely a lot on my swatch sheet. I make sure that my color is perfect before bringing it to my project. And for this instance, I wanted to be sure that the rabbit color wasn't going to be close or look the same as the cat. I also did color a little bit out of the lines again, so I'm going to clean my brush off and just make sure it's just with clean water, and I'm going to just run that clean water over where I painted outside the lines and pick that paint up with a paper towel. I always make sure I have paper towels ready to pick up any mistakes that I've done. You see I am pulling colors from my main palette to the ceramic palette, I always paint like this. Painting straight from your main palette makes it super hard to control the pigment that you're bringing to your project. You don't need a fancy palette. I've used dinner plates, my glass mat, even acetate from a stamp package to wipe my brush on. So I'm not bringing pure pigment to my watercolored image. I highly encourage getting into this habit if you're new to watercoloring, of using a swatch sheet and using a second palette. Moving on to the dog, which I think is probably my most favorite character out of this whole scene. He just is so happy. I'm using raw umber to color him. This is a color I've been reaching for a lot. I painted a light coat, and now I'm going to move on to, is it a bunny, a guinea pig? I'm not quite sure what this little guy is. I did go back to the package just to see how they were painted, and I decided to give him yellow ochre sides. I figured I got a good orangey yellow theme going on, so when I come back to add a bit more detail to him, the yellow ochre was just going to be a perfect neutral to work with. I'm going to add Potter's Pink. I love this pink. It's very muted, very like a dusty rose. If you use a lot of this paint, it does granulate really strong, like the color separates when it dries and just makes this beautiful texture. But I thought it would be perfect for the noses and the like the mice ears and tails, because it's just not a bright pink. All right, so now everybody has their main color down. Now you're going to just see me add the contrasting colors, add shading to the right sides, and just kind of fiddle until I'm happy with the end result. So I'm going to put some music on and just let you watch how this works out, and I'll be back in a couple minutes. How cute are these dancing friends? I absolutely adore them. You'll find more details over on my blog on this new release and on the blog hop. I'll leave a link down below in my description. There's a great lineup of designers that have joined in today, and there's also a giveaway, so you'll want to leave a comment on every blog for a chance to win. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. If you liked what you saw, please give me a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more. I'll be back in a couple days with 2 more cards from this collection, so I'll see you then.